Rotation. Here we go. Reverse. Welcome to our City Council work session. It is 5:30, Tuesday the 30th of April. Welcome everybody for being here. We have a full council tonight and a full auditorium, hundreds of people. Thank you for all coming. I appreciate it. Would like to ask if someone would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Please stand. Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would anyone like to lead us in an invocation or a thought? That is quiet.
I'll do it.
No. Anyone? Okay, I'll do it. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful tonight to be able to be here, to do the business of the city. We're grateful for the citizens that we serve and grateful to be able to work together. We're grateful for the freedoms we have to do so and to be able to meet in this beautiful building and to represent the city as we take care of this business. We pray for thy spirit to be with us. Help us as we make decisions, and please watch over all those that work for the city, work with the city, and for those that serve on this council and other things. We are grateful for all we're given. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Okay. Chris, Ryan?
We're up.
Just like that.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the SAFER grant that we just applied for, or I should say Chris just wrote, and we turned in. The SAFER grant, if you want to go to the next one, is the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response. This used to be a 4-year grant. They've changed it to a 3-year grant. And there's 2 portions of the SAFER grant that we applied for. One for the hiring of full-time fire personnel. And then the second one is the recruitment and retention for the volunteer/part-time department, which is a completely separate grant. So if you want to go to the next slide. First off, this is the picture that I was able to take, or my daughter took, about 4 minutes after a 911 call came in 3 doors north of me, Monday morning. Call came in at 6:44, and I was there at 6:48. My daughter was a minute behind me. Single family garage, fully involved. That house fire was contained to the garage. It melted the siding of the house to the south of that. Inside that garage, he lost a Jeep rock crawler, 2 Harley Davidsons, and then his truck outside is totally destroyed as well. So the next slide is a quick video just to kind of show you when he jumps over to the Facebook page that was posted on what this looks like, and this plays into a little bit of
Sound.
that's okay. It was having issues, so it'll work. So you can see one guy spraying water, and then that Payson fire engine. This call came in at 6:45, and the first engine took 12 minutes to get there. That engine had 1 person on it because of the lack of people during the day and in the morning. That fire was an outside fire. We were able to tap the hydrant with the 3 EMTs that responded on the ambulance and lay that line, and then use a outside ground monitor to start putting 500 gallons a minute on it. But it took our engine 12 minutes to get there. Payson was 2 minutes after us. So why do we need firefighters? This is the type of situation that could have been a little bit different, a little bit earlier. I'm not saying it would have been, because 4 minutes after the call, the picture before showed how fully involved it was with the fuels. So I want to jump back to the PowerPoint and the slides. We'll kind of talk about what we applied for.
Oops, sorry.
We don't know if we're going to get this grant. It won't even be awarded until, what do we say, September of this year. So we're 6-7 months away. So 1720 is the standard for NFPA standard for volunteer or part-time department, the number of people that you should have responding on a fire. And we fall into that urban area, which says the minimum we should have is 15 people within 9 minutes. That's awfully hard. Even if we were staffed, we wouldn't have 15 out of Santaquin. We would have more. And then the next one is if you had a smaller population of a suburban, you were supposed to have 10 people within 10 minutes. The fire we had Monday, we had 8 firefighters from Santaquin that were able to respond, 3 EMTs. And then we had 5 from Payson and 4 from Genola make it to assist us. But Genola was obviously a little bit longer to get there than Payson was just a few minutes after our first engine. That plays into our safety, what we can and can't do on a fire. You have to have what NFPA refers to as the 2 in, 2 out rule. If you try to put firefighters inside the residence, you have to have 2 firefighters outside basically as a rescue team, and we're struggling to meet that. Time is money, time is property, and time is lives. And if we're not able to get in and start searching for a victim that's trapped or lost in a fire, we end up having to basically write that off and we lose them. Next slide, please. So why the staffing? This just kind of covers what is included in the hiring of a personnel. We offer the full benefit package, life insurance, dental, all that stuff. And then it has some numbers. Obviously, these numbers for health insurance are based off of the current fiscal year we're in. We all know that they're constantly going up, and so we couldn't estimate very closely as to what it would take to hire a firefighter, but it's not cheap. And as we look at hiring our first full-time firefighters, we're not looking for a brand new firefighter. We're going to be looking for a firefighter that can come in with some experience and help be a leadership role as we start building our ranks to start moving forward with hiring the full-time firefighters. Next slide, please.
So Ryan, before you go, let's talk about that just a little bit. So benefits from firefighters, if I remember correctly, and my finance director just walked in the room so she can give me a head nod or a no. But I believe for firefighters, we figure about a 60% increase from the amount that we pay to the amount that it costs us because of those benefits and that insurance and all the other things. Is that so? So if you pay somebody, and I'm just going to use a number here, I'm not saying this is what we would hire people at, but if you pay somebody $50,000 a year, then you pay 60% more than that for that person due to the benefits, due to the workers' comp, due to all of the things that we have to pay to be able to support that full-time person. So that will give you an idea. Like Ryan said, there's a lot of numbers in here, but on average, we figure it's about a 60%. And I think that covers URS retirement as well. So all of those things are kind of lumped in. It might be 59 on some, it might be 61% on others because of age and familial status for insurance and those types of things. But on average, we figure about 60% additional costs on whatever we pay in wages to cover benefits.
And that's almost with any full-time employee. It's going up.
Right.
The firefighter retirement system is a little bit less of a cost than the public safety, the police officers. We're in a separate system, and our contribution is lower thanks to every citizen that has fire insurance. We have a fire insurance tax that helps offset the retirement benefits, but that also provides death and dismemberment or disability for all volunteer firefighters. If one of our part-time or volunteer firefighters are hurt on the job, they're covered as if they were a full-time person and would get paid. So that's kind of the retirement package.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Sorry to jump in there.
So we just, for number's sake, we picked a $75,000 average, and that kind of seems high, but the going rate for a firefighter EMT or a firefighter paramedic is pushing that with experience. Again, not a brand new person. So we used 4. Basically, we were looking at 1 per shift, a 3-shift rotation, and 1 on a 4-10 or a 5-8 schedule as an admin captain to help float. So there would always be 2 full-time guys in the station. So you can see if you use 75,000, it's 46,360 for their benefits, and then a total package would be about 121. So over the course of 3 years, you're looking at a $1.5 million investment for these firefighters over 3 years. Go to the next slide, please. So how does that equate if we're able to get this grant? And again, it's only if. That first year to hire 4, the out-of-pocket for us would be 0. The second year would be on the hook for 33%, 173,174 just about. Year 3, 361, and then year 4 would be the full package that we're online for. So
And is that, remind me, 4 or 3?
that is for 4
4
firefighters.
full-time
That
firefighters.
would be 4 full-time firefighters.
So if we get this grant and it comes in September, says you got it, you can start hiring then?
We actually put in the grant process that it would take until the next fiscal year. So if we get awarded in September, you have an onboarding or a hiring process that they would not start until July 1. So you'd be able to go into the budget year. Provo just received this grant, and they actually were awarded in November, and they're just starting the process to get them going, knowing that they'll take a little bit to get on. So it's not, oh, you're September, you hire 2 weeks later and start them. It would come in that we were able to slowly budget it. Even though that first year they're 0 out of pocket, it would be getting into the budget and start making talks of it. Next slide, please. So the second portion of the grant that we applied for is the recruitment and retention. And this was for the volunteer. They term it a full-time or a volunteer department. Because we're a part-time agency, we fall under the volunteer department. We actually put in for a total of $2,140,000 and some change in a number of different categories. First category was the pay per call stipend, and that we can get money to help offset what we're currently paying our people. And this is for firefighters only, does not include EMS. And so we put, I think there was 46 firefighters, and we used an average of each firefighter would receive an additional or get $7,500, which would bring in a lump sum, and that's broke down here in a little bit. And then the second category was tuition assistance for higher education, and this is mainly to help get people to paramedic school. The third one was a grant administrator. If you're awarded one of these grants, they highly recommend having a grant administrator to help take care of all the paperwork and every other thing that goes along with it. And then PPE, turnout replacement. So we break it down a little bit more in the next slide. Again, $1.45 million, and it averaged $7,500 per person with 46 members. That's over 4 years. They'd break that down into a chunk, which can't read that far. We also put a COLA of 4% in on the stipend end for each individual. So it's about $375,000 a year we would get to help pay our current wages that we're paying for those on-call members.
What's the turnover anticipation on those on-call members over time?
You know, as we start adding and getting to 24/7 coverage, we're going to have to hire more individuals because of only being allowed to work the 29 hours a week. So we're going to have to hire a few more people. As with anything change, you're going to see some people leave, but you're going to see some people stick around and pick up more shifts. I don't anticipate a ton of them leaving. I think you're going to see more people trying to get their certifications or fire certifications who are only EMS so that they can work more and be a part. And I also think you're going to see more EMS people become firefighters, more cross-training as it opens up the doors for us.
And is that just a result of more shifts available, more growth
opportunities,
potential
more
for
growth
them
potential.
to not only have the training, but also to have the extra hours where right now maybe it's not open to that many hours?
Correct. And
Okay.
then you have more people that are really exploring this as a career, and they're seeing this as a great opportunity to get that and open their door for a full-time agency. But we also have a lot of full-time guys who work for other agencies that are willing to come work for us if they can get a 24-hour shift instead of a 10-hour shift. So we can attract more people to come help staff, which brings more certifications and experience to help mentor lesser certified or experienced people as well. Next slide, please. So this one is the tuition. It's $180,000 over the course of 4 years. $72,000 broke down over 4 years specifically for paramedic school. We figured it's roughly $18,000 to get an individual to school. Actually, it's $9,000 what UVU charges. So we figured we'd be able to send 2 people to paramedic school per year for free. Books and lab fee is strictly for the paramedic school, so that's an additional $8,000, so $80,000 there. And then the tuition costs for college level courses, this would help cover prereqs for school, and then programs for degrees specific to fire and EMS management. We're not interested in getting your engineering degree if you're going to stay in the fire department. We want to try to recruit people, but this is a benefit that we can offer to part-time people to help draw them to us instead of Payson or Spanish Fork to offer. And again, these are just all ways to try to recruit people to come work for us part-time before we have to go 100% full-time. And I don't see that happening for a long time if we can manage it with part-time staffing 24/7. Next one, please. The grant administrator, it's about a total of $275,000 over the course of 4 years. With an average salary, we just used a number of $60,000. The first year obviously would be free. The second year would be on the hook for about $13,000. And then 23.5, 31.5, and at the end it would be, 67. And that, we almost equate that to Chris's position as the emergency manager who's managing a lot of our grants right now. This would be a way to be able to bring him on full-time and take some federal money, and then you could subtract what we're already paying him to help offset those costs. And Chris can attest.
That's a
Step up to the mic.
Thank you.
The meeting.
Thank you.
That's a 30-hour-a-week position. It's not 40, so it's 30 hours, and so that's what it was written as. If we were to go to 40, it'd be a lot higher salary, and I don't think we could be on the hook for that. So I thought this was at least manageable. And not that this even enters into the picture, but I will probably be retiring within the next 4 years or 5 years. So if you decide not to carry this forward, you can choose not to do that, right? But as a city, I would like to see this play out at least the 4 years if we're awarded this, so we can see how productive and how successful it can be. So,
Comment really quick.
Come to the mic.
It was just a question, really quick. You said 30 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at 30 hours, you do have to pay benefits. So 29 hours would be the max. 29 and a half, 29 3/4, but once you hit 30, you have to pay benefits. So just as a matter of information.
So are these numbers with no benefits?
I would say that's with no benefits.
These are benefits.
Oh, that's
So
with
these
benefits.
numbers include the benefits?
Yes, this is with benefits.
Okay, so if we went to 29 hours, it'd be less than that.
It would be less than that, but if you're hitting 30 hours and paying benefits, then why not hit 40 hours and pay benefits?
Because you're already paying the benefits.
Yeah, just,
So, yeah.
Chris spent a lot of time, like 3 weeks, working on this, and luckily we were able to use a lot of information that was just from Provo. They were just awarded this grant for 11 or 12 firefighters, and so a lot of the information they had that pertained to our region, we were able to utilize. Otherwise, it would have taken us a lot longer. And this grant, it opens up and is open for a 4-week period. So it's not like you can prepare ahead of time with the questions they're going to answer or ask you. You really have a short window to do this. So he spent a lot of time in those 3.5, 4 weeks working on it, but we just used 60, and then the benefits at that he has is 103 and some change there. Next slide for me, please. And then PPE rotation. This is one area they offered. We were able to put in for a total of 46 sets, because that's the number we used across the board for all the equations of 46 firefighters. So the first 3 years are 12 sets each, and then the fourth year 10. and they're $4,800 to replace everything. So that includes the turnout coat, the turnout pants, helmet, boots, gloves, Nomex hood. Does not include the SCBA, but it does include a face piece. And those have a 10-year life. We're replacing 5 sets a year right now. So this would be a way to bolster and get everybody a second set or replace all those. I think this coming budget year, 24, 25, we'll have everything replaced within the 10-year life cycle that we're supposed to. We've been able to get caught up. So
And is that both PPE and SCBA's?
that is full.
Not the SCBA.
Not the SCBA
Just the mask.
tank. The full, the
Right,
face piece, and
the
the
part that
turnout
we
piece.
have to replace that we've been doing over the last 7 or 8 years or whatever will be up to snuff and where we need to be on
That-
those,
that's
right?
the
Because I know at
protective-
some point in time when we started the grant or not the grant, but the bond that we did for those, we threw a whole bunch in there right at the beginning and then had to pay on the bond, but that was because a whole bunch of them were coming due, right?
That was for the SCBA tank, the
Okay.
actual air packs that we had to replace those. You don't assign a pack per person, you assign a mask per
Mask.
person, and the packs are assigned to the vehicle. So we have the bare minimum number we'll need right
Okay.
now, and as we get that new ladder truck, we'll have to buy a few more of those as well. And those have a 20-year life cycle on them. And then we're getting there. We'll have to replace bottles that have a shorter life cycle, but the hardware itself lasts a little bit longer. So this just includes the jacket, pants, helmet, hood, gloves, things like that.
Okay.
And then those things you have to have a contingency. You know, if a firefighter gets too close like that fire Monday and burns and it discolors the turnouts at all, they're done. We can't use them again. So it's one of those that we really have to take care of. And having the new extractor that we purchased with COVID money has helped us make sure that they're laundered and taken care of more so than we ever did before. So we've come a long ways with the support of the council in the last.
But we still have a long ways to go.
We'll always have a long ways to go. Provo has a long ways. Phoenix has a long ways. New York has a long ways. It's an ever-changing battle. So all you can do is just attack the demon one breath at a time. And we're moving there.
Okay.
So I don't remember.
That's the
name.
last slide.
Perfect.
Can I ask some questions just from an informational standpoint,
Sure.
from a future like uptake and what we're doing there? So this is. I'm just going to go back to a couple of slides. If I look correctly, these are one-time costs, at least as far as the SAFER grant is concerned. We will still need to have some type of rotation in a continual basis after this 4 years. But for 4 years, it could take care of at least our PPE rotation. Am I understanding that correctly?
It could.
Okay.
But yeah, it would say you got the 12 and you only
Right.
needed 5, you can get 7 sets. But in 10 years, all those. That's kind of the downside of it is if you buy 12 sets year 1, year 11, you got to replace 12 sets. Where right now we have them spaced 5, 5, and 5. We're just managing that. But
Right.
again, as you get busier and busier, and with the cancer stuff that they're doing, most larger agencies are going to 2 sets per person. So as soon as you go on a fire, even if it's a small fire or a small gas leak, you come back, those go to the laundry, you're into your brand new set and you rotate right out.
Okay, so going back here, this 68,000 or whatever it is on year 5 would just be a continual cost at whatever level it's funded from then on, should the council decide to keep that position and have that grant writing administrator. That would be that could be, but doesn't necessarily need to be a long-term cost unless they decide and we have the funding to do it.
Correct. And there's rules, like even
Okay.
with and Chris knows more about this, I'm going to pass to him.
No, what do you go?
I was going to say, that, like with the hiring of full-time firefighters, they'll fund it for the 3 years. You have to keep them, I think, for at least 1 year before you could terminate them.
Right.
If you-
Again, I'm not talking about terminating anybody. I'm just
Or
trying to
retirement.
understand long-term costs from the bean counter standpoint 4 years from now.
Correct. If
That's
you
what I'm trying to
choose to keep
understand.
it, then it's just the new employee that we have.
Okay. Then going back here, are these all just one-time costs? Or
Yes.
one-time, these are basically $180,000 that can help get us some of our staff up to paramedics or advanced paramedics or whatever. These are, again, recognizing that training goes on after that, but these are one-time costs that we won't have to necessarily continue 4 years from now or 5 years from now.
Correct. If you
Okay.
get the grant and you use it for 4 years, after that, year 5, you don't have to fund it at all.
Okay,
It's
all right.
just to help recruit and retrain, get new guys to certification levels.
Okay, that's, like I say, I'm just trying to make sure I understand from a long-term aspect of this. This is helpful for 3 years or 4 years, but after that, what does it look like? That's what I'm trying to figure
And
out.
if you notice, 3 out of the 4 categories are just, it's free money
One-time cost.
Right.
That's what I'm
from
saying.
FEMA.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's not a tiered
Right.
approach
Right,
as the grant administrator is.
right. Or as the other hiring is,
That's
yeah.
correct.
Again, that's why I'm trying to understand and make sure that, yeah, you're right, it's free money. We might as well go do it, but then I want to make sure that
Right.
we don't have
There's-
some long-term obligation that
There's
we
no
need to be aware of.
obligation after that for
Okay.
that. Now, having said that, they would like you to carry that on. But if the city's not in a position to do
Right.
that, then
Right, okay. So this obligation, Ryan, if I remember correctly, isn't this the part-time, this is the second grant, right? This is the,
No, that's the first. Safer for the hiring of full-time firefighters
Okay,
is
okay.
the first grant. That's full-time firefighters only. Recruitment and retention is the second part.
okay, so this 539 plus or minus would be a long-term cost to keep those firefighters on and continue to grow the department from there. Okay,
Correct. And that's basically hiring one firefighter for a shift, a 3 rotation shift, and then having a fourth firefighter as like a fourth person as an admin captain firefighter that works during the day, that can still go on calls during the day, but it can also take care of other things. And then again, everything else would be supplemented with the part-time personnel. And that plan that we wrote 2 years ago that showed eventually getting to one full-time firefighter a year, or one full-time firefighter per shift, that's how this comes in.
right,
And so
Okay.
then you'd have the leadership as a captain, as a mentor, a supervisor, the consistency going on per shift in that 24 hours or 48 hours is what firefighters typically work.
okay. So, great, that's really good information, just to help me understand where we're going in long-term and making sure that the council and the mayor are aware also that those are future obligations that while we don't tie the hands of future councils, we kind of are if this is the road that we go down. So we just have to be cautious and go in eyes wide open to make sure we know where we're going. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying it's the perfect answer. I'm just saying recognize that 5 years from now, we now have more costs that we have to figure out how to pick up, as well as, you know, other costs that we have, like a couple $100,000 to outfit our new fire truck, right? That fire truck as it comes, just so you're aware, all that $200,000 or $150,000 worth of equipment is not impact fee eligible.
Correct.
If it's not attached to the truck when it gets here, it's not impact fee eligible.
Correct.
So just, again, ongoing costs. And Ryan and I have had this conversation for the last 2 years. It's been a really good conversation. Sometimes it's a little hard, but it's been a really good conversation to help all of us understand where we're going as we continue to build the department, which is what the need is, right? We can't do, Ryan and I have talked about baby steps, right? We're doing this step and then this step and then this step and then this step. And 5 years from now and 10 years from now, we're still going to be taking more steps, but just making sure that we can understand what the steps are going forward. And I appreciate you helping me to clarify where those are at so that we understand where we're going should these grants come online and the council can make an informed decision on that.
I will say this too, if the grants are approved, we still have to accept. I should say you should have to accept. And basically then we're tying ourselves to it.
Right.
But
Right.
just like, you know, the police department, they're asking for one police officer for every 1,000 residents, the 20,000 to get to their staffing. That's the whole thing of the SAFER grant, is to get you to the minimum number of firefighters it takes on scene to safely do the job. And it's getting harder and harder to find the on-call volunteer. And we've seen that when we went from 100% volunteer to staffing 2 part-timers to 3 to 5 part-timers. And we're seeing that even at night, still struggling sometimes to get people to sign up to even just commit to being 2 on an engine to come at night.
Yeah.
And, you know, Monday was the perfect storm. Everybody was hoping to go to work at 7 and leaving the town, and the part-timers hadn't got to the station just quite yet, and that all came apart. And it was a humbling experience to stand there and watch your neighbor's house burn and listen to everyone say, "Where's the fire truck?" saying, "It's coming, it's coming," and knowing that I had one guy there to drive the truck, and that's all I had for a few minutes. So, like I said, I don't think it would have made a difference on this house, but future houses it will. So,
Yeah.
questions from the council?
I have one. You bring 4 guys on, or you're not going to put them all on a 48-hour shift. what's your plan? Because that'd only cover you for 48 hours. Is it alternate staff, add in part-time, pull in for different times?
So it would be
and where do they stay?
It would be a full-time captain, 1 per 3 shifts. So there's your 3 guys. And then that 4th guy would be like an admin captain that would work a day rotation. So with the funding, hopefully that is approved this next budget year to get 3 people 24/7 in the station, that full-time guy would be one of those 3 people, supplemented with 2 others at night and then 4 others during the day of part-time people. So the full-time captain would work a 48-96 schedule with another captain or another firefighter during the day for 5 days, 8 hours, or 4 10s rotating as an admin captain, and then everybody else would still be the part-timers. Right now, hopefully we're getting to the 3 at night, and then eventually we'll grow slowly.
Anticipate any difficulties with still filling in all those slots?
I don't anticipate a lot. I've had a lot of full-time guys that have talked to me and other crew members saying, man, as soon as we can get a 24-hour shift, they're more willing to come work for a 24-hour day versus a 10-hour day. I think EMS-wise, some of our older members may not be interested in working nights, and they might just want to work the day. So the thought process is not 24-hour shift period. I'm looking at a 12-hour day, a 12-hour night. So people that work another job outside the city during the day that can't do a day shift, I'll pick on Georgia. He can't work a day shift because of his day job, but he could spend 1 night a week at the fire station and pick up a 12-hour at the fire station. So they can work a 12 or a 24 with a full-time captain being there for 48.
Okay, so there's a couple of other things that need to be brought into this too, and that would be the alteration of the upstairs to enable you to have overnight capability, shower facilities, bathroom facilities. Has that been entertained as part of this? Even though it's not funded through the SAFER grant, it's still a long-term thing.
So in the budget that will hopefully get approved soon for next budget year starting July 1, if we get the 3 people 24/7, there was $75,000.
There are funds in there to make modifications upstairs in the now
Current area.
fire area on the west side of the building upstairs to make those modifications. Yes,
There's no shower up there though.
Right.
Was that included in that 75K?
we just have a number in there, and that is just we'll go as far as we can get with it.
It's a swag to get to that point without a.
Currently, there's 2 offices areas that we could use as bedrooms, and then we would enclose where in the old community development where the 2 cubicles were, we
Yeah.
could make that a 3rd office or 3rd bedroom right away, and that's just putting 2 walls in. So the cost there is very minimal. The shower, either upstairs or in the basement, is the big one. There's the 2 restrooms back by the court, but the shower facility, and as we all know, the plumbing is the most expensive of anything. So we're going to have to get creative and make it work.
Plumbing's only expensive if you don't talk to the electricians. It's all good though. So I will indicate, Mayor, that we do have the funds in there. That the current budget, as you will see next week, is your tentative budget. We do have funding in there for approximately $360,000 for the ask that the fire department has had to cover the 24-hour coverage, not 24-hour shifts, but 24-hour coverage, as well as an amount in there to modify the upstairs with walls, bedrooms, whatever. As far as the money will take us, we will go and do what we can do up there to make it as livable as possible for what we're talking about, right? Ryan and I have had conversations about this, and we will do all that we can to make those more livable quarters so that folks have a place to crash or sleep when they're on an overnight shift.
And it might
But
be
that would have 5 during the day still and 3 at night, right?
correct.
Well, I can follow this okay. I think it'd be really good for the council to be able to see a graph or a breakdown or even a Excel spreadsheet so that it could be daytime anticipation, 24-hour anticipation, just kind of so we've either got names or firefighter number, EMS number, to just go down through it so the vision of this whole thing is captured.
Okay.
And we know that we already run 4 in a crew in a day, and you're here every day to follow through with some of those things, and there's probably some of that you're looking at anticipating yourself that you'll have to take now and again, or you're going to have a captain in that place. But it would be good to just have that in a format where you've laid it out and everybody can go, okay, I see this. I think in all fairness, I know what you're going through, and yet the explanation of it may just be off enough that one of the guys might be able to look at it and go, oh, I understand.
Okay.
I'm not saying anybody's dumb. I'm just saying let's paint
Visual
the
learning.
picture so that it makes sense, because there's long term. You can't use the same guys forever and
Correct.
ever. Somebody's got a vacation somewhere. How does all that just kind of fit together? And I think that's important so the whole plan can roll together.
We can do that.
Yeah, and we wouldn't put names in there. We would put positions in there
Positions,
just to make
firefighter
sure that
one,
we
Yeah,
have.
fire
We're
one,
not trying to
fire
plug
two.
people into times or
Yeah.
dates. We just maybe a week-long schedule. We could do a week-long or even a month-long schedule, something like that, so that they can have an idea. That would also help you to understand, or them to understand, how many personnel it really takes to staff 24/7 when you can only work 29 hours a week, right? So
Yeah.
that is in and of itself a challenge, but that's something that we can do. I can help you put that together, Ryan, if you'd like me to.
The other thing too is living quarters. Eventually, Station 142 will come online, and it might be that this is a temporary housing for these 3 people. Once we get the 3, and then if we get that full-time guy, and it might be once that second station is online that they're housed there at night with more of the living quarters and showers separate and everything like that, individual dorms, those things that we have in the preliminary design of that station. So we house them temporarily at this station, and then they might have to go to that station as we grow.
Can you help me understand how we compare to other cities our size as far as full-time firefighters? What is Payson's? What, twice our size?
No.
They're
They're
about-
about 3,000 more than we are.
How many do they have? Do they have full-time firefighters?
They don't have full-time firefighters yet. They have a full-time fire marshal and their full-time fire chief. But they're running right now 3 24/7 out of their EMS station and adding 2 more. So they're hoping to get to 5 24/7 there. And then they're looking at adding almost what we're doing with some part-time fire staffing during the day. Mapleton would be a good example. They're running 5 full-time guys per day. Now,
So
granted,
we're behind on what other cities are doing.
we're behind, and then the other thing for us, the disadvantage for us, is we don't have larger communities on all of our sides of our community. Payson, we go help them on automatic aid, they help us, but we have Genola and Goshen to the west who may have 1 or 2 guys, and it's just because they're a lot smaller. Their department size is a lot smaller.
Oh, and Rocky Ridge.
And I use Rocky Ridge a lot, and I love those guys because they all work in their community and they're there, and so they're on our automatic aid, and they get called frequently to come help us. Like I say, Mapleton, they have 5 guys 24/7. They also have a lot higher property taxes. Spanish Fork has gone from 0 full-time people to about 12. They're actually looking at bringing their second station online with full-time guys in July, and a full-time engine crew as well. So they're ramping up, and that's hard to compare, but they also have a big population and a big tax base. So
Yeah. Is Spanish Fork or Payson chasing safer right now, or anyone else other than Provo? We're about the only ones in the county.
I haven't asked anybody.
I have, and nobody has chased this, but it's a national grant.
It's a national grant. I
Well, we
figured
looked at it for a long time. It's had some drawbacks, but the only big drawback is after 5 years you own it,
you do.
and you own the people that you're dealing with, in so much that you need to take care of that you've planned and have been helped to get paid for up to that point. So it's taxes or however else it's got to be paid for, because going on, you still have to take care of all those costs.
And you guys know that.
Yeah, and as our community is growing, I mean, we're seeing call volumes about 12.5 to 15% increase every year, statistically.
What are we now? Fire and EMS?
It's about 85% EMS, 15% fire calls, which is statistically across the board.
Are we over 1,000?
No, last year we hit just under 900, but we're averaging, I can tell you as of today's call, give me just 30 seconds and I'll pull up. As of today's call, the first thing this morning, we're at 290 calls. So
A third of the way through, we're going to be over 900, somewhere between 9 and 100.
I anticipate just about 1,000 calls this year.
Okay.
So, and we're seeing that 15% increase every year, and that's just with the community, and the community's growing. So as we start bringing more houses on, if we start bringing more businesses in, we start attracting more people, I think you're going to see that going up and up and up.
Were there any comparisons or comparatives that you looked at, especially you, Chris, when you pulled this down? Is there national stats for awards or where they need to be with these safer grants? Pull them in.
To answer the question, Mayor, I did not look at those, but I do know that they're all over the board. And
All
speaking
over.
with the grant managers.
Well, we looked at it
Yeah.
a bunch of different times. You know, did we want to stick a toe in and see what it would feel like? And there is a commitment, and that commitment is right where we're sitting at now. You know, we need to look at it. We need to see what the benefits, and even up till 4 years ago, we could balance. We were getting enough coming in that were part-time that could get us through, and I know that's where the choking point seems to be.
And so that's the reason why we did both separate grants.
Well, I like the one. The one really come up with some good thing, especially if you're going to bring in some new blood. But
Right.
that's also the capability of somebody that's already fire trained. Is that what you're thinking of, that you'd be able to roll into an EMS or paramedic role and have him already cross-trained for what's going on? And you could do it for a little cost for what I was seeing. Is that kind of what your thought process
That's
is?
exactly our thought. Yep.
Okay.
So, Mayor and Council, if I may, I don't mean to break in, but just to give you an idea, it could be said that we're behind, but it could also be said that we're ahead. If I remember correctly, we've had an EMS and ambulance for 10 or 12 years more than some of the bigger departments north of us. So it's really been, in my estimation, I haven't been here that whole time as far as the admin goes, but we've really focused on the things that we focused on, and now we need to focus on other things. We're a growing department, we have growing needs and those kinds of things. I would indicate to you, just from a staffing perspective, this is not Ryan's entire budget, but just from a staffing perspective, to give you an idea. So I'm going to go, you can see this screen that I have up on the screen here, that $531,000, just to give you an idea, from this fiscal year that we're in. I don't know why I can't. From this fiscal year that we're in right now, we're going from $610,000 part-time wages and salaries. Now, that doesn't include full-time, which is just one person right now, but part-time, we're going up 65% from $610,000 to over $1 million just in one category for the part-time wages. So that will give you an idea of where we're going and this is exactly what we're talking about, a baby step. Now, I know $400,000 doesn't feel like a baby step, but trying to go to even full-time coverage right now, I mean, we could potentially go from $1 million a year to $2 or $3 or $4 million a year if we just jumped right in and went to full-time, everything's full-time coverage and full-time staffing. It just doesn't make sense for us, and that's why Ryan's report from a couple of years ago works really well for us, is because it allows us to ease into it rather than trying to have it all at once. And this helps us as well. This really helps us a lot. But again, if we were to just take on this one grant 4 years from now, that's another 50%, more than 50% increase of next year's budget anticipated just for part-time wages. So those are pretty big jumps, but it's what's needed to be able to get where we need to get to. So again, I'm not trying to put a wet blanket on things. I'm just trying to help us to understand from a perspective standpoint where we're at, where we're going next year, and where we can go years after that. That's really, and again, Ryan's report from 2 years ago really outlines all of this stuff a year and a half ago. So if you have questions about that and where we need to go, I would refer you back to that report. I think I've sent it to all of you just a couple of months ago, but that will kind of give you a perspective of where we're at today, where we were at a year ago, where we're at today, where we're going to be at next fiscal year, and then where we can go down the road. Is that okay for me to say,
Yeah,
Ryan?
that's perfect.
Okay.
When were you going to hear? Fall?
We won't hear until October, November if it's awarded or not.
Okay.
So I had a question for you.
Sure.
If this works out and you do have a full-time guy there every day, how does that increase your response times? Like, what does that do to your response times?
Well, the full-time guy there, again, we're getting pending your approval, hopefully next week, would have 3 in the station. So the full-time guy is the supervisor. They'd be able to leave the station right away. So instead of having that 8 hours or 10 hours of no firefighters in the station, we'd have 3. If that would have been the situation Monday morning when the tones went off, 30 to 60 second turnout time to get in the truck and drive down the road, they would have been there right away. So you're talking, well, during the day we're anywhere in Santaquin City proper within about 6 minutes. At night it's 16 minutes. It saves you 10 minutes of time.
No, you said this last one was like the perfect storm. There's just like between
Everybody
shift
was
change
going
or
to
whatever.
work. So there's no firefighters on call after 6 a.m. because they have to go to work. And so no scheduled firefighter on. And the part-time crew doesn't show up till 7. So they're usually there 10 minutes early, 5 minutes early. Some of them were on their way. They got there, grabbed their gear, jumped the second vehicle and left. Like I say, that first fire engine, after about 4 minutes of standing on scene, broke the hydrant, got it ready, shut the gas off, walked around, did my size up. I finally called on the radio and said, "Who's at the station?" And I had one EMT say, "There's 3 EMTs and 1 firefighter here." Now, we've trained our EMTs how to take our fire hydrants for us, and the ambulance busted down, told them right where the hydrant was. That engine pulled up, the EMTs grabbed the hydrant bag, wrapped the hydrant, the engine took off. I ended up pulling what we call a blitz monitor, 2.5-inch pre-connect deck gun, and set it up, and then we had water flowing with one guy. Even that one firefighter driving with me showing up, we would have had water within, 3 minutes.
Okay. And how many house fires do you get each year?
Yeah, that varies every year. We average at least 1 good structure fire like this. I hate to say good structure fire, but a big structure
Like
fire.
this one?
Sometimes there's 2 or 3.
Okay.
I mean, we've had a small, it's considered a structure fire. It was smoldering in the attic just across from the care center 2 or 3 months ago. So I think we've had 3 this year.
Okay.
Do you have a loss calculation or report over the last couple of years that you've looked at? Because that's the one thing that ISO kind of brings up is what are your losses? And do we have something like that?
We just go back at our NFIRS and look and see what the total dollar amount is that we put in.
Yeah.
Problem is, I
We're
estimate
swag.
that it's a
Yeah.
swag. That I estimate because you have to put a number to buy that house new. On the market right now is about $560,000 for that house. And they lost another $200,000 in contents.
Yeah.
That doesn't include the 2 Harley Davidsons and the Jeep that he lost and his pickup. So that loss there, you're $750,000, $800,000 that he lost on that fire. And that doesn't include the neighbor who their siding melted, but they're also out of their home as their house is getting decontaminated and cleaned and all their belongings to remove all the smoke because they had their windows open to enjoy the cool night, and it just blew right in. So that fire, you could potentially be $800,000, $900,000 just on that one fire. I couldn't tell you what Bart's daughter. I mean, it's been a year and a half. Shannon's next door neighbor, and they're still not in their home. So, dollar-wise, inconvenience-wise, you're a lot.
Yeah, and that one happened during freezing temperatures and real bad safety issues with, he had one guy just out putting salt on the ground, ice melt on the ground, just trying to make it safe for his guys to work. So that just is a whole other aspect of it.
Well, you still have other losses on other things. You have them on wrecks. You have them on
Oh, absolutely.
car fires and others. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I think we get everything answered.
there's lots of questions, and I'm not sure that we have all the answers,
That's
but we're
perfectly
Can,
fine.
can
we're
you kind of put together that graph or that chart or spreadsheet so that we can kind of map through and the guys can understand, okay, this is what we're going to end up for crews, this is what we're going to end up with for part-time or 12-hour shifts, or so that that whole thing can kind of be painted out?
I'll know more once you approve a budget for next year.
$1, you got it.
Okay.
I'll give you 2, Ryan.
That's next week.
Do I hear 3? Do I hear 3? Going once.
I think that would help me a lot. Is that?
So, yeah, I'm a visual type of guy too, so it helps.
I just think it would help, you know. I know all these struggles. I just don't want to guide them too bad. Thank you for everything you put in.
Yeah, thanks, Chris and Ryan, both of you. I know that there was a lot of work that went into this, and again, I think that we're going down the road that you identified a year and a half ago in your report. It's just figuring out how we get there, right? It's part of the plan.
It's going to take a while, right?
Right.
Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, and that's all we can do. So, like I say, I appreciate Chris. He spent, I don't even know how many hours over the SAFER grant, and then we applied for the second grant. Luckily, we were able to take a lot of stuff from the first grant that we had and put it to the second grant as far as the statistical stuff. But what did you spend? How many hours? He doesn't even want to know. Way too much, and I wouldn't have had time to do it. So I really appreciate Chris doing it. He put the PowerPoint together, so he is really behind us. So I'm going to defer a lot of the questions when it comes to it. He's the SAFER expert out of the two of us.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Good work.
I want to do this rather quick, this next one, and that's the discussion on the celebration of local businesses. And, you know, over the last few years, we do a volunteer one month, a city employee the next month, and these are all really good. But I've really wanted to include in that, and I think we've talked about it a little bit, a business too. And some of these businesses need to be spotlighted. I think it would be really good to know that we break it down to every 3 months. We'll do one on employee, one on a volunteer, one on a business, and then that'll give them all 4 different aspects, for employees, for volunteers, and for businesses a year. And we do the same kind of thing, but we spotlight a little bit more to where these new businesses, maybe brand new businesses, will put, and other times there'll be a business that is one that we've had and is well established. I really would like to spotlight things such as new businesses that come into town, and maybe we look at it as a complete council and say, you know, this month we want to do Murdoch when they move in. Next month we may want to do BDS when they move into their new building, or maybe we want to do Holiday Oil, you know, or whatever you might want to look at. There may even be a home occupation that's really good. And once we get some of this out, people are going to see that. And it may be that we're able to put an explanation of what they do, and people go, gosh, I didn't know we had that kind of a business in town. And it's advertisement for them. It's us celebrating how good they're doing, or whatever we want to as a council. So I wouldn't mind starting this in June and do business in June. We're doing a volunteer tonight, and then do an employee in July, and in August we start over. Would that be all right?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
It's
Any
a great
issues?
idea.
There's actually employee tonight, and
Volunteer
then we
next
can do
month.
volunteer in July. There's actually volunteers
May.
already set up for May too, so
I
we'll
think
get
we're
it. We'll get
doing-
it worked out.
We're doing the volunteer next
Right, next
month,
week.
right?
Yep, next week.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Fully today,
that
yeah.
still leaves June to
Yeah.
do the
Yep,
business.
we'll get it worked out.
And then we'll just rotate them through. So, Emily, let's let Penny know what we're going to do on that. The other thing is, since I would like to do a business, why don't we try to set up some ideas? If you want to send a a suggestion. Do you want to monitor that, Jason?
Sure.
That way I don't get into the middle of making some kind of thing where I drag in 2 councilmen or 3 councilmen and there's something illegal. I don't want to do that.
Well, I think to expand on what the mayor's saying is this is a recognition. You know, the chamber does like an award, a business of the quarter or whatever. This is a recognition, and sometimes if we try and pull for nominations, then it just becomes more complicated than it needs to be. But if it's just internal and the council kind of just says, here's a business I think we should recognize, it'll be a lot easier to just be on top of recognizing a business and doing what the mayor's explained.
Yeah. Let's send your ideas to Jason. No. That way it doesn't become any kind of a sunshine issue.
Yep.
And that'll just keep it all out in the open. We'll bring it up on Thursdays in our meeting. And we'll see how that works. If we need to change it, we'll change it. But look at the businesses that you've thought about, and then if we could jump on that, I would appreciate it. Everybody okay? We good?
So we're talking any business domiciled in
Any
Santaquin.
Any business you want to put in there.
So I think I would mention also that the mayor's intent is not necessarily to duplicate or replace what's going on with the chamber, right?
Yeah.
The chamber has their
Yeah.
business of the quarter. They'll continue to do that. They'll continue to get ideas from us. This is a separate effort on the city side from what the chamber's doing. Is that accurate, Mayor and Jason?
I
Brian?
just think it'd be good.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be fun to spotlight AutoZone and just go in and find out who the people are that are working there? Put it out.
Yep.
Who knows who
Agreed.
works in Family Dollar? Who goes to the dance studio? Oh, you go to the dance studio, don't you, Trav? Yeah. And you're big in yoga.
I think it'd be good because there's a lot.
He has
a lot of new
Lululemon.
people that have moved in that are still getting to know Santaquin, whether that's the parks, whether that's
Yeah.
up the canyon, but also the businesses. And I think it's also it's also service to the town to be able to highlight some of like the great businesses that offer great services or offer great products. So
Yeah. Okay, let's give it a try. Let's see how it goes. We know that we've got just a couple of weeks to kind of get things put together, so let's jump right on this one for the business for June.
The suggestions are already coming in.
Perfect. Okay. Water report.
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, we've talked about where we're at for the water year, and I'll just bring up the 2 graphs that you have so willingly looked at and probably crossed your eyes a few times as you look at them. This is the snow water equivalent graph. As you can see, this orangish color of a line right here that's now highlighted, that's where we're at this year. This green line is the median line that the mayor wanted, or the average line that the mayor wanted me to add, that I added on there. So if you look at right where we're at the end of April right there, we've taken off about 2/3 of the water that we had up there has already come off the mountain, which is, it seems like a lot, but then I looked at the graph today and I look, it looks like the same shape that it does every year. It's just, some of them last a little bit longer, right? Last year was the line that we had up here, the lighter orangish line. That was last year. This is 1983, a projection of 1983. We didn't have a stream gauge up there, but in essence, it's following the same type of melt off as we typically have. We're typically going to see that come down. We might see a little bit of cooling, right? There's a cool front coming through. There's a little bit that happened over the weekend that kind of slowed things down, but I would have to say that from a comparative year to year, we're doing a lot better from flooding side of things this year than we were last year. We've had a couple of instances where there's been a little water on the road or here or there, but that's been more operational with valves and other things that got closed down a little bit too much, and we're restricting the flow, and so I think we're doing really good. And then on the snow depth graph, again, the same thing. This darker brown line over here is where we're at, and the green line is the average. So right at just a little bit above average at this point at this time of the year. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about that. If not, that's great too.
the flow's been good. I saw from the website the status. It's like we're looking good this year.
Yeah, we're looking really good. There is a little bit of a downside to it, but that they slow the higher water flows that we've been having have slowed the work down up the canyon for the contractor up there. They've had some challenges with the higher water that's coming down, but that's just to be expected.
Okay.
So, anyway, any questions on that?
Okay, let's just try to hit the highlights where you feel we should, or if there's any questions that you have from
Okay.
having read any of the agenda items or minutes that you would like to bring up. But
Okay.
why don't we go through that? Just hit the highlights. Okay.
Okay, we've got regular minutes, the bills. Any questions on the bills? I didn't hear from anybody. Does anybody have any questions on those? Okay. Out-of-state fire training for the fire department. That's pretty self-explanatory. Employee of the month is Nick Cummings.
There's one question on the Questar bill that came through.
I saw a $189,000 check again. It looked like it was a replacement check, but I didn't quite understand.
It was. So we made it out to the first Questar entity that we thought it was supposed to be made out to, but when we got the invoice, we had to make it out to a different one. So it's not a double payment; it just is a replacement check.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and that is all having to do with relocations of the gas line, the steel
Right.
gas line on Main Street for the Main Street project.
Okay.
Okay.
Out of state training. Okay.
Yeah, so out-of-state training, employee of the month, Nick Cummins, who is in the fire department. Nick does a great job for us. The mayor will have a appointment here for Terry Giovanni Davis of the Historic Preservation Committee, Public Forum. We will have, I'll note that the page is split, so please recognize that between 5 and 6, we have to open a formal public hearing for our budget amendment, which is for this current fiscal year that we're in. We're doing one more budget amendment, and then we'll have another one come the last couple of days of June. We'll have one more to finish us off. So we'll have a public hearing on that first. Then we'll go into building permits and reports, municipal wastewater planning program. That's from Jason Calloway. That's an annual thing that we do, pretty self-explanatory. Happy to answer any questions that you have on that. The budget amendment number 2 is resolution 0403. Number 9, ratification of resolution for the architectural services. This is merely just, now we have the contract that we were working on before. This is not a reapproval. You've already approved the funds and you've already approved the contract. This is now just so that you can look at the contract and it's out in the open and we can ratify that. Happy to answer any questions that you have about that. Discussion possible action on community services use of excess funds from surplus property. So the old seniors building that we've had over here, we've sold some appliances and books and dishes and other things, and they would like to reallocate those funds that we now have received funds for to purchase some things for the community services department. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and we would recommend that you approve that. It's not a lot of money, but it is enough that they can get some things done. And then the last thing is the resolution 0402 2024 CDA. That's for the CC Callaway purchase agreement. I would note that not in the packet, but in front of you right now, each of you have a copy of the proposed building plan that they want to do. If I can just take a moment here, Mayor, and help the council understand, almost every business that we've had that we've sold land to out there have come back on the architectural requirements that we have in the purchase agreements, and they're having a struggle meeting it in order to make it so that it's an affordable building for them. So the beautiful buildings that we were shown and that are in the agreements are feasible, but they're just not as feasible as something that might be a little bit more towards the industrial type uses that we're looking for out there. And so this is just a building that we believe looks decent and looks good enough. It will probably look as good or better than the Best Deal Springs building that's out there that's going in. You may have noticed that they have the wainscoting now on that, and it looks pretty decent, the glass in the front, and they're putting curb and gutter in and getting ready to go on their site plan. But this has been a little bit of a struggle with us on the materials and the percentages and the types of materials that we have allowed in the purchase agreement. So this amends that just slightly, and we anticipate there may be other agreements that may come back for amendments as that as well. So just so you know, the CC Callaway and the Wasatch Steel, there's 2 other lots on the backside that was originally an option for Hyde Homes, Jimmy DeGraff and Reed. They have a site plan in as well, and so we're getting 4 acres going to be developed this year that are going to be having buildings on them, and they're moving forward. We're still need to close on one of them, and they'll be putting a building in this year, and we still have some other potential sales that we'll be bringing to you as we have more information on those that we've talked about in the past. Did I miss anything on that, Mayor? Are we good?
No, I
Okay.
think we've just had some issues that we've wanted to take care of. And, you know, when we first put it together, we just dumbed down our commercial aspects, and we've just found that some of that is a little more expensive than what these industrial places want to spend to do it. We're still getting the jobs, we're getting the businesses, and it's just at a cost to say, rather than do this, you could put a gold-colored cornerstone of metal siding, and it makes it look just as good at a cost they can afford. So
moving forward, we'll accept this in new purchase agreements. Is that what we want, right?
Well, so that's for this specific to this agreement, this CC Callaway agreement. Moving forward, in other agreements, we will likely amend or look at other types of buildings that may not be quite as onerous for the owners.
I think it's key to understand that we're doing individual agreements with each of these properties. From an architectural standpoint, and I'm the chair of the ARC, architectural is subjective. And so the city council approved an individual agreement for each individual property with an expectation of what those buildings would look like. All this is doing is helping to get the base architectural requirements to really get it started, figured out, but also it's going to be amending the agreement so that their specific looking building is a building that you guys are good with the aesthetics of.
Right.
But again,
But it's not pushing it to all the other agreements.
Correct. Architecture is subjective, and think of this as not trying to cover every situation, but as looking at the specific agreement and making sure you're good with the architectural
But I
aesthetic.
mean, like strategy wise, moving forward, like make it easier from the beginning,
Yes.
so that they can get
Yes.
building, right?
Right,
Yep.
we're going
Okay,
to try and
so
address some of the requirements to make it a little easier so that we're not having to keep amending every agreement.
Yeah. Okay.
The reason I say amend is because we have 3 other agreements that we've already inked, that we've already signed, that may come back and ask us for something different. What I can say about this building is actually, I think, going to be a really nice building. These lighter color panels, even though they look like they're pink, they're not. It's a light color gray that's made to look like stucco. It has a texture on it, like a stucco texture. This is you can see here, this is like a maple siding, a vertical maple siding, and then horizontal siding, and a couple of this is the big part right here that we're adding, is these vertical what we're calling decorative steel panels. So this is still a steel building. It's very clean. It's going to be a very nice building. This just adds the vertical columns basically to help them get closer to where we need to be for the percentages. But yes, moving forward, any new contracts, we'll address that up front. We've already started having some of those conversations with potential purchasers on lots that are still under negotiations, and having those conversations up front just because of what we've learned so far. I did forget also, Jason reminded me, I skipped over number 11, Ordinance 0403, Home Daycare Business Code Amendment. That's something that Jason and the community development's been working
In
on.
the simplest way, this is just amending some language to be in line with state code, that legislation that happened in 2022.
Okay. One final thing, other than your reports, we will be having an executive session on pending reasonable imminent litigation and purchase and exchange of property. So should be fairly quick. We'll just want to go over all these things, and that should be it.
So I'm just throwing it out there. Could we have it before the city council meeting, or does it have to be
After.
after? Okay.
Well, you can
I'm
have
just
it,
saying if we finish early, get us.
so we can't start the other meeting early. We have
Okay.
to start
Yeah.
the other meeting at 7 o'clock.
So it has
That's
to be
what-
part of that meeting.
Yes,
Yeah.
it has to, that's when it's noticed for.
One of those law things we're just trying to follow. Okay, I'd like a motion to adjourn from this meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll